Welcome to another episode of Real Talk with Dr. Jim Sharps. It's a pleasure to be back with you, Dr. Jim. Appreciate the time that you have taken to do these videos with us. I'm sure there's many people that find it really insightful and helpful to understand more about original medicine and the natural perspective. For those that have been following along and are regular viewers and visitors to our channel, you'll know that recently we've been looking at the philosophy of original medicine, looking at underlying causes of disease. How does conventional medicine approach it? How does original medicine approach it? So you've got something to compare and contrast, kind of like for like through that same lens. So what we're doing now is continuing thematically from where we finished that series. And we want to look more specifically at how do you, at a very practical level of life, how do you kind of evaluate and manage your health in light of these potential underlying causes of disease? And for those of you, again, that are regular visitors to our channel, you'll know and hear us talking about RBTI, Ream's biological theory of ionization, something we're putting an immense amount of energy into. So we thought we're going to continue a kind of a companion or a sibling series looking at RBTI and the more practical side of really managing your health. So Dr. Jim, perhaps we can just start off by, I know we've done RBTI videos before, so I'd refer you back to that. But could you just give us a brief outline of what RBTI is?
Yes, RBTI stands for Ream's biological theory of ionization. And it's an analytical tool. It's a set of numbers that basically gives you the opportunity to evaluate your biochemistry, your biophysics. And it's a laboratory level test that you can actually run in your own home, or you can use it in a clinical practice.
That's great. And in terms of the tests, we'll go into more detail, but perhaps you can just give us an outline. I believe there are 7 tests. Could you give us an outline of what those 7 tests are?
Yes, there's 7 numbers, and we're looking at the relationship of these numbers. The first number is the measuring the percentage of sugar or bricks or carbohydrates in your urine. You're analyzing urine and saliva. The second test is pH. There's 2 numbers. We're looking at urine pH and saliva pH. The fourth number and the third test is looking at conductivity, electrical conductivity. The fifth test is looking at cellular debris, or albumin, as some people would call it, as it's referred to. And the 6th and 7th tests are your ureas, and you're looking at 2 things. You're looking at the nitrate nitrogen and ammonia nitrogen. So those are the 7 things you're evaluating.
And in terms of, again, very broadly, if you've not dived into RBTI before, we've got other videos on the channel. We'll try and make sure that links are there for you. But how do these tests relate? Is it a case of you can just take the number from one and know that everything is hunky-dory? Is it, oh, a number's bad here, all is not well? How do those tests interrelate? Because I think that's where the real, how can I say this the right way, Dr. Jim? The real value is in terms of how those tests interrelate.
Yes, you can't look at any number by itself and make any broad analysis. You can get kind of a peek. It's like looking in a peek hole, and if you see straight out, you can see so much, but you don't see what's on the side, on the left, the right, the top, the bottom. You really need to look at the whole pattern in order to be able to get a full assessment of what's going on systemically. But the power of that is you learn so much more than what you learn in a blood test by looking at these numbers, looking at the patterns, looking at the relationship of these numbers and where they are individually and in relationship to each other.
You mentioned an interesting point I want to go back to. You mentioned it's more effective than blood tests. There are probably a lot of people that their eyebrow has just kind of gone up like this as they're watching. Why is the urine and saliva, from your perspective, Dr. Jim, more impactful and more insightful and gives more insights than a blood test?
Yes, and that's a very good question. And a lot of people don't realize when you take a blood test, the blood is changing minute by minute. Every 15 minutes, it's a whole new number. So even if you took the same blood test a half an hour later, you can have different results. And also, depending upon the lab you send it to and the reagents they're using, you can get different results. So that can vary by time and by processing reagents being used, etc. A lot of people aren't aware of that. Urine, this is your body. This is your urine, your saliva. So you're getting, first of all, a real-time analysis that's focused on your body. And the urine is a reservoir of some 2, 3, 4 hours that you have collected. So it's a better evaluator. It's a better analysis. It's a better picture of what is going on in the system. Now, over a 24-hour basis, if you did minute by minute blood tests and you took the average and you did the same thing with urine, they come out the same thing. It's the same body. But just by understanding a couple of those factors that I tell you, you can see that the blood test really doesn't tell you that much. And just think of it. How many times have you heard people say, I've gone and I've had my blood test and everything is perfect, and they drop dead literally 2 or 3 weeks later? And what I say to a lot of people is, if go next time you get a blood test, and if you don't tell them that you have a headache or blood pressure or pain or indigestion, the blood test won't tell you anything. You tell the doctor, they look at it, and most of the time, because it's reconciling itself, it really isn't telling you what's going on. So they feed back what you told them in Greek or Latin, and you have the impression that the blood tests reveal that, but in very rare instances, the blood tests really tell you what's going on. Now, in advanced cases where you see creatinine levels off, this, that, and the other thing, it will tell you something. But even then, it doesn't tell you how long you had it, what your energy level is. And the other shortcoming of a blood test is comparing those numbers that you have, is comparing it to the norm. The value of RBTI is comparing you to what is perfect. So there's a whole, and a lot of very healthy people their numbers aren't in those norms. So that's those are a couple of reasons why RBTI, is a far superior tool for analyzing what your systemic requirements, capacities are, and your systemic conditions. I hope that helps explain that a little bit better.
Yes, most certainly. And just, connecting in with our previous series in terms of the philosophy of original medicine, what is the value at a practical level, Dr. Jim, of RBTI contrasted with blood tests to, at a very practical level, help you manage your health? Because the length and duration and the amount that you have to engage to do blood tests all the time, if you wanted to do it regularly, most people that I know that are in that do this test, they maybe have blood tests once a month, and you have to do different tests that you can screen for. How does RBTI give you a better option than that for managing your health at a day-to-day practical level?
Yes, it's much more flexible. As you said, a lot of times you take the test and you have to, even if they're mailing it out, you have to wait hours or days or weeks to get the results. These are real-time results. It takes 5 minutes to do an RBTI test, and you have the answer right there. So you can do multiple tests a day. You can do tests every day. And if you're if you're in a wellness center, you can actually find out how your body is functioning during the different cycles of the day, and then you can compare it on a daily, weekly, monthly basis to manage your progress. So it's a lot more flexible and a lot more affordable than doing a regular blood test.
Yeah. And in terms of, you mentioned the keyhole earlier. What is it about RBTI testing that gives you almost multiple keyholes or multiple looks? Why is that picture more complete than a blood test? And I'm using the example of blood test because I think that's what a lot of people watching this video will be aware of. That's how I can understand what's happening in my body. I'm going to go and have my bloods done. I've gone and had a blood test and the panels came up like this. But how does RBTI take that to another level, Dr. Jim?
Yes, RBTI basically is reading how all your systemic organs are functioning. It tells you what mineral deficiencies you have, and as you understand it, as you understand anatomy and physiology, RBTI can actually pinpoint what organs, what systems are being impacted on a very real-time basis. So it sounds simple, but just like analyzing blood, the urine and saliva also is telling a lot about what's going on systemically. The person who invented this looked at all kinds of things. He looked at blood, he looked at earwax, he looked at tears, he looked at skin, hair, all these things. But the most practical and the most reliable and the most consistent happened to be urine and saliva. So that essentially is why it's so superior. It gives a full picture. Now you have the ability to be able to tell, for example, if you had to have a scar 2 inches above your left ankle. Now you don't need to be able to do, there's very complex mathematics involved. There's quantum physics, relative math. You don't have to know the math. Now, if you know the math, that's when you can do the pinpoint. But in order to move the numbers, there are some basic things that you have to understand about these relationships. And you mentioned original medicine. You have to understand those things, those dietary and lifestyle factors that are causing and contributing to the numbers. And so that's what's superior about it. The blood isn't telling you anything about what's causing and contributing to that blood. It's just telling you, here's what you have. And you have no idea of what the diet, the lifestyle, or anything is. You actually can get a picture in to what that person's diet and lifestyle is. And it's really interesting when you're sitting there in a consultation and you start asking questions about this, and the person's thinking you're reading their autobiography, when actually you're reading the numbers and you're just getting feedback. So the real experts in RBTI doesn't even need health forms. They'll tell you what your issues are. But that takes a little bit of a sophistication. But as we're going to go through this series, what we're going to talk about is a very user-friendly way of understanding where those numbers are in terms of 5 different zones and what the perfect zone is and what you need to do to move it to perfect. And that there's a few principles that help you, and original medicine applications that basically are appropriate and relevant there.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Jim. So that's the series. It's 7 tests. We're going to be going through them, and it's probably going to take about 5 episodes that we'll go through. We'll go through each of the tests, look at it at a very practical level. How does it work in a bit more detail? And we're going to just walk people through RBTI. And I know, Dr. Jim, just as we close, for those that have watched this video and the other RBTI videos that we have on the channel, I know that there is a training coming up. Could you maybe just share a few more words?
Oh, yes. Yes. We do regular trainings and online trainings, and there's 10 2-hour sessions on a weekly basis. The next one is going to be September 8th. And I believe that it ends November 10th. It's going to be done here in the United States, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that's our next online test. And we're also in the process of completing our online accredited certificate course. And that should be done by the end of the year, but possibly sooner.
Wonderful. Dr. Jim, thank you. For those that are watching along, do check out the video description. We'll try and put the links to the various videos there, and where you can find more information out about those online courses on RBTI, the 10-week program. So thanks for joining us again. I hope you'll join us again for the next one, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now.
Let me add, Seth, also for those who can't attend any of those classes, if they want to do some of their own, look at some literature, there's a book out there called Choose Life or Death that goes into a lot of the foundational science and principles, not in a fairly user-friendly way, but it is basically, that was written by Dr. Reams. And there's another book called Human Health and Biological Ionization by Bedeau. It's a 300 plus page book, but what we've tried to do is take those two books, and we're it's probably going to be in print by the end of next week. We wrote a book called The Ultimate Access to Health and Vitality. So that book will be available, that where we distilled a lot of the information out there and put it together in a very user-friendly way.
Wonderful.
So
Dr. Jim?
those are other things that people can check out if in fact they're not ready to attend the class.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jim. We'll make sure that the links to those books are in the video description. So do follow along, do leave us a comment if you're interested in finding out more and what information you would want. But I hope you're going to enjoy joining us on this new series that we have. So we'll definitely, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and we'll see you on the next one. See you then.
Okay, bye for now. God bless.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, clicking the bell icon so you're notified whenever we upload.